2, 1.
Mike, John,
Peyton, John.
Fellas, thank you for joining me here today. I want to first start off about my first story and interaction with you. This was 9 years ago now. My oldest brother got me in touch with you because right out of college I was trying to start a food ordering, online ordering website. And I was 22 years old and really didn't know what I was doing. It was a very good learning experience for myself on what not to do and realizing that I didn't know what I was doing. Because when you're 20 years old, you think you're invincible. So, but I remember you taking the time, you were running a business, and you taking the time to meet with me, and you've continued to do that over the past decade I've known you. So I appreciate you always being someone I could reach out to.
No problem. Enjoyed it.
But I'm glad we got to set this up. You know, we've kind of started to work together as well, which is really cool life cycle to see all that. And wanted to give you guys this platform to talk more about yourselves and eMoneyUSA, and want to open up to you first and tell me more about eMoney and what it is.
Okay, thank you. Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
We're glad to be here. So eMoneyUSA is a fintech company. We provide loans online direct to consumers. And we do that, and we're licensed in about 8 states, so we follow all the states' laws in that particular states, and then we do it all online. So, you know, where before someone would have to maybe go into a bank and, you know, inquire about a loan and take a day or two to hear back, you know, we can do this, and, you know, we will receive a loan application, score it in under 20 seconds, and often have the loan to someone in under 15 minutes.
Okay, nice. And what does that process look like versus people calling in? Is it all online?
It's all online, and so, you know, where we focus mostly is the subprime market. And when people hear subprime, they think, well, that must mean payday loans, right? And so, you know, I think that it's important to explain how are we different than a payday loan company, especially in Kansas City, where, you know, there's been a lot of bad actors in the payday loan industry. I think it's even more important to articulate that here.
Yeah.
First off, payday loans is a bad product. You know, it's a product that says we're going to let you borrow some money. We need all the money back on your next paycheck. Well, the problem with that is a lot of people don't have all the money, and so they get to that point. They're able to pay a little something, but then they have to roll the loan over, and this can continue on forever. You know, and a lot of times they look up and go, "Well, I've paid all this money, but I haven't even lowered the principal."
Yeah.
And so, what really is a better solution to a customer is when it's a fully amortizing installment loan, and every payment has some principal, has some interest. You know, certainly it makes sense to pay those off as soon as you can. We always have no prepayment penalties, no fees of any kind, and so, you know, worst case scenario, you only have a set amount of payments. The states that we lend in, their laws often dictate how long that loan can be.
Okay.
For example, in Texas, it has to be kind of under 180 days. In Missouri, they want it to be over 120 days, so it just kind of depends on what the state laws are.
State by state.
Yeah, but when we receive a loan application, you know, someone applies online, from the moment they hit submit to the moment we speak to them on the phone is often, you know, a minute, you know, and then we typically do kind of a few last minute questions over the phone, and then can qualify them and get them the money immediately.
So it sounds like you guys specialize in customer service and ease of giving your customers what they want.
Correct. I think it's and Jonathan talk more about the tech later, which is really fascinating. I think the tech's so advanced that we don't even really have to speak to the person on the phone. I think we do it because we're looking for anything that seems kind of out of whack.
Yeah.
Also, I think the customer wants to talk to somebody. You know, they're like, hey, I just submitted a lot of information online. I'm a little uneasy about that, and then they can't talk to anyone. You know, so I think their ability to talk to someone and say, "Hey, we're in Kansas City, and, you know, my name's Molly, and here's how we, you know, what questions can I answer for you?" I think it makes people feel a lot more comfortable with the transaction.
Before we get more into the tech, because I think it's fascinating how you can automate this whole process, especially with such human engagement. It's very hard to automate. So, looking forward to kind of diving into that. But before we do, wanting to get to know you more, can you kind of back all the way up to with your entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. Yeah, I went to University of Missouri. First job out of school was a banker. I think being a banker is what made me want to be an entrepreneur. We travel all over the place and meet with people, and to be a guy on a farm who makes 2,000 widgets a day, and he was a small business owner and an entrepreneur, and I just love that, and I just always wanted to be on the other side of the table, and as a business owner. I think later in life, like you, I realized how much harder that really is. I think it looks easy from one side, but it's through a lot of trial and error. So, I had my first business was a limousine transportation company, where we provided town cars and limousines and buses, and I learned a lot doing that. What I didn't like about that business was it was hard to scale. It's kind of hard to do that in a city that you're not in. And also, it was just around the clock. I'd have my buddies call me at midnight, be like, "Hey, where's my town car?" We had 100 people working for us, but they went. They'd call my cell phone asking where their car was.
Yeah.
So I said I don't want to do that anymore. Yeah. And so I got out of that business, and then I had a short stint there where we manufactured sunglasses in Italy. We did all the molds ourselves, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, that was probably one of the most fun businesses we worked on, but it was harder than heck to sell them, and I think
competitive space.
I like to think I learned more doing that than if I would have gone to 2 years of business school.
Yep.
But at the end, how to manufacture things overseas, how to get them through customs in the U.S., how to sell them. There was a lot there, but to actually sell those things was extremely difficult, and we had I think a modicum of success, but certainly it was never a profitable business. And then the next was this. So I mean, we started getting into this space and thinking that there was an unbelievable demand, making the loans ourselves in the beginning, my business partner and me, and it was just 10 times harder than we thought it would be.
Yep.
Took twice as long as we thought it would. Cost more money. We didn't pay ourselves for almost 2 years, which was a remarkable thing. So it's just it's extremely rewarding.
Yep.
When we get to the places like we are. But little do people realize what the sacrifices that have to be made ahead of time.
Yeah, no, it's a wild journey, and usually you don't hear about companies like yours till they've been around for 10 years. And when did you guys start?
2013, we made our first loan.
Okay, nice. Yeah. And over to you, Jonathan. So you're the technical architect. You're in charge of all the code and tech stuff. How did you get into IT?
Oh man, I think that it's kind of interesting. A lot of it comes from my childhood. In second grade, I went to Catholic school, and so we always had uniforms and everything else so that way the school, there wasn't you couldn't tell the kids that were really well off from the really poor ones. And so, but once a year they allowed us to have show and tell. And so a lot of people brought their puppies or their teddy bear or something else. I brought this crystal radio that I had made from scratch. And this is me in second grade.
Yeah.
And so I actually started off in electrical engineering.
Oh wow. And
then just kind of pivoted later on. I had my dad always had a workshop where I got to go out and invent things and build stuff.
Yeah.
He was big into fixing things. So if the washer or dryer broke or something, it was always a do-it-yourself job, that kind of thing. And just kind of that upbringing of learning how to fix things and learning how things work. It kind of laid the foundation for everything. In college, my favorite class was physics. I actually was a couple of classes away from a physics minor.
Oh wow.
And I've done everything. I feel like I've done a very wide variety of jobs. Growing up in South Central Kansas, I've done everything from pour concrete and drive grain trucks and assemble buses, all the way up to owning my own business for a short stint, a software consulting firm, to working in many different industries. Before eMoney, I was working for a company that did facial recognition technology. Mm-hmm. I've worked in healthcare. I've worked in, did my time at Cerner, like most tech people in Kansas City, and American Century Investments. So I've had a wide variety of jobs and exposures that's kind of led me to this point.
And what's the tech stack that you're currently working with?
Our current tech stack is Apache Tomi, which is it's a Java-based framework. We stick to all of the We stick to all the Java EE, now Jakarta EE standards, and that provides us really cool stuff like JAX-RS for parsing web requests, and a CDI, which is dependency injection, all very, very modern. And there's more than one implementation of these technologies, so we can move between vendors. Another cool thing about it is myself, one of my previous jobs was working at Tomi Tribe, which was an international consulting firm with customers all over the world, everywhere from, just all kinds of big and small corporations, places you've heard of. And they were sponsors of this project called Apache Tomi. And I'm a committer on that project to this day. So even though it is an international open source project, it's kind of cool. There's people you'll meet at tech startups or tech events that are also Apache committers. And so that's kind of our goal, our strategy on our tech stack is always, leverage open source technology, and then have committers in house that are, people that can do releases on these open source projects, and then we leverage code from other companies and everything else.
How many people are on your team now?
I have myself, and then a senior software engineer, software dev 1, and a software dev 2, and a help desk manager.
And why I like where you guys are at is that you guys have because you're kind of the acting CIO
ish.
Right. You're hands on. And
very much.
I think 5-10 years ago, it was CIOs or software development managers they were more functional. They weren't technical. And so to be able to be hands on and be able to get in the weeds with your programmers, I think is a huge selling factor.
I think so. And actually the guys that work for me have mentioned that they actually really like that, because one, as the leader of the organization, I think it's important to be able to mentor the guys that work for me. I'm at a point in my career, I've had a lot of experience in very, very diverse fields, and I've had to lead teams like this in the past. So being able to provide them, a path to mentorship, and then also helping them succeed in their careers is very, very important. We want to make sure everybody that works for us. Mike, what's the saying if the banker that was talking about investing in education, and he says, well, what if we educate them and they...
Oh, yeah. There was a line I saw, and I came in one day and gave it to Jonathan, but a banker who said, they were talking about how much investment you should make in people, and he said, I'm really concerned we're going to come in and we're going to, really mentor these guys, and we're going to, put a lot into their education, and then they're going to leave.
They'll leave.
And the other banker says, well, I'm more concerned that we're not going to do that and they're going to stay.
No, it's so true. I feel like if you're Cerner, yes, that's probably going to be the case. It's going to be their first job. They're going to get trained up. You're going to invest money into them. But when you have a smaller shop and they feel like they're part of the family, they feel like they're part of the cause every day, it's a different kind of investment of time. So that's really interesting to hear that is your culture. That's great. So, Mike, with you, can you kind of talk, I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs that watch the podcast, or people trying to get into it. Do you have any words of advice?
For getting into what?
Entrepreneurship or starting a business?
Well, I think if you can start it early,
Yeah.
like you did, because you're going to have so many failures, that if you can have those failures when you're young, and you have maybe your parents to support you a little bit, that's helpful. Yet this other side of that is only, I think, one of the advices I gave someone is only when your back is truly up against the wall are you in a position to see what you're really made of, And so when you have a little bit of a safety net there, I don't think you fully can work hard enough to achieve whatever it is. So you have to put yourself in that spot. It's a scary spot to be in. I mean, you quit your job, or you go down to one income if it's a two-family, but you have to make that jump, and then I think, you work super hard, and even despite that, it still may not work, and sometimes it's the second or the third iteration of that, and then you have to find the balance between saying, well, do I pivot because it's not working, or am I not? Do I got to stick it out because I'm not giving it enough time? And you just have to make those decisions on the fly.
Focusing more back on the tech, have you guys built any proprietary softwares or algorithms that are unique to what you guys are?
Oh, definitely.
Can you kind of dive into that? Also, I'm curious about the dialer system. I've heard about dialer systems around Kansas City and these other big companies, and can you kind of really break down what a dialer does? I think is pretty fascinating.
Sure. So we don't want to give away too much of our magic sauce.
That's right.
But some of the, one thing that Mike, we were talking just earlier this fall, we were having a huge problem with like people that like they want to opt out of text messaging or something, and you would think that is a really simple thing. All you have to do to get out of texting is like reply stop, like for automated texting. And we're of course fully TCPA compliant, everything else, but there's sometimes people are like, hey, can you not text me as much anymore, or something like that. And one of the interesting problems we had was making sure that we catch those so we remain compliant. And what we did was we went through, and we have a guy over in India that works for us, and we call him our mechanical Turk because he's a really cool guy, positive attitude, always willing to do whatever we ask. So we gave him like 5,000 text messages and asked him to read each one and tell us, was this an opt-out or not an opt-out?
The tone of it was a person expressing I don't want to be contacted again.
So are you giving him all the information so then you can teach the algorithm with the right data on what is a response you guys are looking for or not? Yeah,
because what's tough about TCPA stands for the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, right? Okay. And so, even our own customers, they a lot of them love to communicate via text.
Yep.
But there may come a time where they don't want to be communicated via text anymore, and it's a very compliant space where someone responds stop, like you cannot
stop.
Okay, But the challenge and what was so interesting about this is, there's plenty of off-the-shelf products that will help you manage that. But if someone expresses any interest in not being contacted, maybe they don't use the word stop. Hey, I'd rather you not, contact me again.
Yeah.
The burden is on us to interpret that the person didn't want to be contacted and opt them out. That's a very difficult thing to do from a software standpoint. And so Jonathan's
it depends on the language.
Correct. And you also have to think about the failure. One thing in engineering is you always have to think about failure modes. So a failure mode on, for instance, a very, very mundane device that all of us deal with, unless you drive a Tesla, is a gas pump. Mm-hmm. And so the failure mode on a gas pump is that it'll sometimes stop pumping gas when you don't want it to, but it'll never keep pumping gas when it's not supposed to.
Right.
And so it's geared towards failure towards a false positive. And so part of the challenge of this algorithm was we can't just look at the text message, and if we see the word stop, just opt them out, because that ultimately would affect our bottom line.
Yeah.
So the algorithm we designed, we started off with like natural language processing, and that kind of ended up, our data set ended up not being big enough to make an effective algorithm. So instead we came up with a railroad diagram system where we messed with stem words, and then given the combination of words following that, the likelihood of it being an opt-out text. And the nice thing about that algorithm is it has the failure mode is the missed opt-out is very low, like 0.01%, which is great. But then the failure mode is false positive, and which is around 5%. So what it is it gears towards being cautious and protecting the company from being sued, or which doesn't happen very often, but like more importantly, it gives the customer a good experience.
Yeah.
And so and that was kind of an interesting algorithm we worked on, and focusing on kind of the engineering side on it.
Well, you talk about scale, and the things I love about the algorithms, and good algorithms that you can sell or high value, is ones that are being built with key data, niche data, over years and years of being in business. And that algorithm is only that way because of the time and information that was put into that algorithm over the years. And so I think that's a fascinating thing, because you can't replicate that.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. How do you guys see it transforming over the next couple of years?
Well, that particular algorithm, I mean, we'll continue to. That was just an example of where we actually have a lot of stuff like this. That particular algorithm we're going to continue to evolve to make smarter. We
Yeah.
want to reduce the false positive rate and give both. We don't want to opt people out that are our current customers because we want to remarket to them.
Yep.
But we'll continue to evolve that one over time and make it smarter and find more edge cases that we can cover. And kind of some of the other cool things we're working on is like being a lender. There's two things you got to deal with. One is default, and the other one is fraud. And my team is kind of tackling both of these right now. On the fraud front, we're doing a lot of KYC, know your customer, and making sure that like who we are talking to is actually the person we're talking to, which is surprisingly hard. Especially for online lending. That's why I think banks have been maybe slow to embrace technologies because it's a lot harder. People are more conscientious to walk in a bank with somebody else's ID than they are to like take a picture of it and send it online or something like that.
Well, and I think it's changing. We have a newer client who is a traditional bank here in Kansas City, and they are changing everything. And now they're hiring an executive to come in to literally, they want their new brand, their new category that they're being under as a digital banking company, and they want to be completely online. And they also were like, we want to be a fintech company. So it's you got Commerce Bank and UMB Bank and these old traditional banks, and obviously they'll always continue to kick butt because they're so big. But this transformation of doing everything online and how accessible it is pretty fascinating. So, and I think it's really hard because if you don't have programmers, if you don't have forward-thinking people, you're gonna be left in the dust.
Yeah.
And I love that you got that. You're like, we're a fintech company. So I think it's exciting what you have, and you obviously have a lot of cool tools, especially with the programming languages there. And so I want to ask you both this question, Mike, starting with you. Who has been your greatest mentor or biggest influencer in your life?
It's
professionally.
Sure. I think everyone has someone they can name for that. I mean, obviously, personally, my mom, my dad. Professionally, I've never had a mentor, and I always looked for one. I saw my friends have one, and they can be they come in a variety. They're maybe a boss or they're a neighbor or they're an uncle, and I never had a professional business mentor that really kind of embraced helping me. And I think that's I had to learn a lot of it myself. If I could go back and do it all over again, I would have really worked harder for that. So I guess my only point here is that if you have that, it's a very nice place to be. And you should value it, and you should embrace it, and you should cultivate it. And I think at the same times too, and I think part of my problem looking back was like I had people that I tried to get to be my business mentor, but they weren't really willing to put the time in or give me their time. And so it has to be a two-way street where that person says they take an interest in you for some reason, and then they're willing to give you the time. Because without the time and those personal interactions, I don't think you're ever going to truly benefit from it. So it's something that looking back, I wish I would have had more of, and I didn't.
Yeah. Well, you're doing all right. And
thank you. You can still be successful if you don't have a business mentor.
You figured out.
Hopefully, is maybe the message.
I think it's an important question because I had one, and she was very influential for me and really got me on track. And without her, I don't know. Would have taken a lot longer. And I still, that was 9 years ago, 10 or 8 years ago. So I still remember things that she taught me then. But what about you, John?
Oh man, personally, always my parents. My dad made it to like every single one of my baseball games and everything else. I had really awesome upbringing. Professionally, I kind of my journey. I've had several mentors in different areas. I did some time over at Argus Health Systems, now owned by DST, and that was like my second job, and I had just some awesome bosses. We were kind of an interesting unit in there because the entire organization was still like writing COBOL, and everybody there was like 50, 60, 70 years old. Our CIO, when he retired, was in his 70s there, which is unbelievable. Especially for what they did. Yeah. And then we were this small unit in there that was like the hip kids that were writing Java code. When I say kids, I was like, young. I was pretty young, 22, 23 years old. And I had just had some incredible bosses there that really were great leaders. Despite like having organizational pressure against us, they're like, what are you guys even doing here? This is an online transaction processing company. What are you doing writing Java code? And so I had some incredible bosses there that just, very patient, showed me how to like be thorough, when you schedule something, follow it up. Also see projects to the end. Don't just, get it almost to the finish line, because it's always that last little 10% that is the hardest. Yeah. So I had just some really great mentors there and everything else. On the tech side, one of my previous bosses when I worked at Tomi Tribe, David Blevins of Tomi Tribe, really interesting, really extraordinarily interesting man. He worked for IBM for a while, and his journey is kind of amazing because he was kind of a founding person that put the Java EE specification together, and influential in that. And then later on, he went and created his own company, Tomi Tribe, and an implementation of Java EE Tomi, which is what we use in our stack over at eMoneyUSA. And listening to I worked for his company for 2.5, 3 years, and just I got the opportunity to travel with him to client sites and then teach other teams how to run efficient software engineering teams or help them solve their problems. And just being able to be on a plane or in a car with this guy and listen to how he approaches problems and everything else on the tech side is just amazing. It was just like every moment you could have with him in person, you just wanted to sponge it up because it was so good.
A lot of those older IBM folks, they have fascinating stories.
Wicked smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys are now passing it along and trying to mentor as many people as you can. So lastly, you're in your 7th year at eMoney. What do you foresee for year 10 and year 15? Whether it's a new space, new technologies, growth.
I don't know. I don't know if we look out that far, maybe we should. I think we like to look out maybe 6 months, and kind of maybe 12.
Rooftop patio for sure.
Yeah, cool office space, or where we have a cool office space now with ping pong tables and we have food catered in, and that's all great. But we obviously having a neat office space we always think is important for the quality of life. I think really we continue to just invest in tech. I think hopefully Jonathan knows how much the owners believe in the tech and support them and make ourselves accessible when they want to talk about something. And so, we continue to go problem by problem and say, can we make it faster? Can we make it more efficient? I think, it's fun to talk about, all the tech. Back earlier you asked about what about, call dialing, systems. And, when you talk about like a dialing system, like it doesn't sound at all interesting, but the amount of tech we have in our dialing system is fascinating. The way we route calls.
Tuning it to improve conversion is like, you would think dialer systems are pretty boring. Like if,
what sounds like literally a rotating dialing phone. It's a bad name.
It is a bad name, but there's almost there's a lot of tech in terms of people are applying, but once they've applied and they're getting routed in, like what happens when the person hangs up the phone, or how they disposition that call, and do we call them back? Do we not call them back? When do we call them back? And so all this stuff is running and making decisions so that the call center agent and the loan officers don't have to do it. And so that's super fun, and we are continuing to get better at that and do that. So I think when you say what's in the future, it's like, hey, continue to invest in tech. I argue that we're more efficient with 50 people than a lot of organizations similar to us are with 100 people. Yep. And we're doing that through the tech. And so that's where we have the most fun. I think we have cool problems over there to solve, and I think our whole organization has a lot to learn from IT, because one of the things I always try to explain to the rest of the organization is say, listen, I think a lot of people go through life thinking, hey, if I can avoid problems, I'll be happy. A problem-free day makes me happy, and I always tell them that as crazy as this sounds, the opposite of that's true. You know, you need problems to be happy. You need to have a problem, and then you need to solve the problem, and then the solving of that problem is what brings you happiness. And so, you know, don't run away from the problems. You know, look at it as an opportunity. And I think that's kind of the culture of the organization we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
For
my sister always says they're not problems, they're situations.
Opportunities.
Yeah, opportunities. So lastly here, is there anything you guys would like to add? And also, if someone wants to get a hold of you or they're interested in joining eMoney or seeing how they can get involved, maybe working with you guys, how do they go about getting in touch?
Well, on the tech side, like if if anybody's interested in working for us, we're willing to teach anybody that's willing. One of the candidates you brought us wasn't exactly experienced, but like we recognized in his interview that he was extraordinarily teachable and he was very hungry to learn. And that's the kind of candidates we want because we can grow them. We have the resources to teach, and so if you're interested in Java or JVM technologies and you like solving hard problems, we've got a ton of problems to solve, and some of them on the surface, like dialing and optimizing a dialer, sounds really boring until you get into it, or identifying defaults or identifying people that want to opt out. Like all that sounds really boring until you get into it and you realize like how cool of a problem that is, and then so.
Well, it sounds like you guys are creating technology to make things super efficient.
Correct.
And that could be that's really really cool and really attractive for a lot of people, especially again like I was saying, because there's so much people engagement with what you guys do. Okay, cool. Well, appreciate you guys coming on.
Thank you very much for having us.
45 minutes already.
It went by fast.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Well, thank you
very much.
Appreciate it. Awesome.
Cheers.
Cool. Alrighty.